So let's start our hands-on by creating the bucket. We have some configurations we need to deal with them. First thing is we need to specify the region. For my case it will be Paris, Europe West 3. I will choose, for example, a name like, for example, Udemy ETL, okay. For example, name 1, okay. Then I will deal with the ownership of the object, either with ACL disabled or ACL enabled. So what is it? ACL, it's access control lists. Access control lists in AWS S3 are a way to control the access to the S3 buckets, and also a way to access the objects within these S3 buckets, okay. This is at a broad level. So these ACL, access control lists, define which accounts or which users have what types of permissions on the buckets as a whole. Which account or user have permissions to access the objects and the buckets. Next, we will keep disabled, okay. So now blocking public access settings for this bucket, we will keep it blocked, okay, because when you create an Amazon S3 bucket, you have this option, okay, to either block public access or not blocking public access. If you have this option, it is just to ensure that the bucket and its contents, the object inside this buckets, are not accessible from the internet, from public accesses, okay. This is important. It's an important security measure, okay, to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive data, for example, stored in the bucket. Next, we have this bucket versioning. So the bucket versioning is enabling, okay, the versioning of the objects. Enabling this versioning will allow you to keep multiple versions of the objects in your bucket. This is very useful, okay, because we need it for data backups, for the data recovery, for the maintaining of version history, okay, of the files. With versioning enabled, you can retrieve previous versions of the objects after you delete them or after you overwrite them. So after deletion or overwriting objects, if you enable the versioning, you will be able to check or to have that versioning history, okay. Next, so we will in my case I will disable it, but you can also enable it. Tags, this is optional. Here there is an important part, which is encryption, okay. The encryption is enabled by default, okay. There is server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys here, and there are KMS here, and there are this type DSSEKMS. So different types, okay, different ways to do encryption, different types. We will talk about this. So server-side encryption as a feature is provided by AWS, okay, and it is something that it's a feature that help us automatically encrypt objects stored in the S3 buckets. So if we have objects in our S3 buckets, they will be encrypted before saving them, and they will be also decrypted when we want to retrieve them. So before saving, they are encrypted, each object, and encrypted by this feature, the server-side encryption, okay, by AWS. When we say server-side encryption, it means by AWS. They handle this. They encrypt objects before saving, and they decrypt object when we want to retrieve them. So it occurs on the server side, okay. This automatic encryption is by default, okay, by default. Any new object uploaded to the bucket will be encrypted automatically, okay. So there are different types of encryption, okay. The first one is the one SSE S3. It means that S3, Amazon S3, okay, manages the keys that are used for encryption and decryption of the objects. When we encrypt when saving and decrypting when retrieving, S3, okay, S3 service, S3 as a service manages this, okay, manages the keys. There is this SSE KMS, okay, SSE KMS. It is AWS Key Management Service, KMS, okay, is responsible for managing the keys used for encryption and for decryption. It is not S3. It is something else. Call it AWS Key Management Service. Another service, KMS, is responsible for this, not S3 as a service, okay. So finally, here we have the bucket key. After the default encryption settings, we have this bucket key. So this bucket key is when it is enabled, okay, it means that each object stored in that bucket will be encrypted with unique data encryption key, DEK, okay. This will help reducing the cost, because we will reduce encryption costs, okay, because we lower calls as mentioned here to AWS KMS, okay. So this will help us reduce the cost. It is helpful. And this DEK, the data encryption key, is known as the bucket key, okay. So that's it. If we create now, we are fine, okay. We region, give it a name, disabled, blocked or public access, disabled the versioning for now, encryption is fine. We will, S3 will do that for us. Bucket key is enabled. We will reduce costs if we choose KMS, but in our we are choosing S3 here. This is disabled. We will just now create the bucket, okay. So see here, this is our bucket. It is here. Now we will upload things to our bucket using Boto3, and in automatic way